Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going to be continuing the series that I started yesterday, where we talk about skills in detail so that you guys don't have to watch a whole build guide just to understand what some skill nodes do. This time around, it's going to be Rive. If you end up liking this kind of content, I would heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. Also, comment what skill you guys want to be covered next, as all of that is the best way of making sure that I keep making videos like this, because if you like it, you got to interact with the video. Otherwise, I don't know that you guys like this kind of content. So let's get into it, shall we? So, Rive, there's a few parts of this tree that we can divide it into. So there is like kind of like the old part of Rive tree around here. There's like the upper right, which is kind of like the less desirable parts of Rive. Then there is the new stuff, which is up here in the upper left, which is very strong. And then we have the physical conversion stuff, which we can talk about down here. So let's start it off with, of course, the old stuff. So we have just a bunch of attack and cast speed for the first and second strike. This is really good because a lot of Rive builds are based around getting to the third strike as quickly as possible, and this does so. Getting 40% increased attack speed, that is a very large amount of attack speed. That's like a whole pair of wing guards for just a little bit of investment, which is great, right? And getting plus levels to Rive is very good because of nodes like this, right? That are dump worthy and have a lot of points that you want. Now, the next node here is going to be rending. Rending just gives you some armor shred. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's not very high value. It's like whatever, right? It's just a travel node. Then we have Indomitable. What this does is it makes it so that if you're high health, you create a wave of energy after your first strike. I'll be honest, this node's not very good. It's kind of memey. It's cool. It's a cool idea, but it's not implemented in a way that makes it feel good. It's kind of cool when you're doing like an ailment Void Knight and you get extra hits, but I don't think it makes that much of an impact, just even for 1 point, right? If it was every attack made you have an energy strike, right? It was like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and like the third one was like a bigger one or something like that. It'd be way more interesting, kind of like the way that Flurry works when you add the waves to the attack. But without that, it's like kind of meh. And of course, we got Cadence. What this does is Rive normally is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This makes it so 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, which makes it so you do the first and second attack more than the third attack. Now, most of the time, there's not many reasons to do this, but we'll get into one specific case of why to do this later, which we'll talk about later. Now, of course, you also have Double Slash, which Rive skips the third strike. This is really strong if you are trying to utilize Rive as a mana generator, because on top of all this extra attack speed here, and of course the mana gained when you use Rive and hit an enemy, and the first and second attack having better basic attack speed than everything else, this means that, of course, when you skip the third strike, it means that you can generate a lot of mana in a very small amount of time, right? So you do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? Now, of course, this isn't like the best node ever, but it's definitely like an option that you can make if you want to generate a lot of mana very quickly. Then here, this just gives you some more damage to third strike. Since you're making it harder to get to the third strike, it's a benefit for doing so. And you also have even more damage here, and also mana gain with the third strike as well, which is like 15. So if you don't want to skip the third strike, you can go for this to get even more mana instead of just skipping the third strike, which is a viable option as well. Not many people use these two nodes, and that's just because like they're just so far away from all the other nodes. And Rive is definitely one of those builds or skills that needs too many points, and you don't have enough points at all to get everything that you want. So like you start skimming points like these ones, right? Now, we have these nodes, which just make strike 2 have increased area and do a little bit more damage, which doesn't really matter for us, but it does matter in terms of challenge. So if you're at positive mana, Rive's second strike pulls enemies, but costs more mana. The area which enemies are pulled in are affected by increased area of effective skill stats. So the area here, this strike area, and area on your tree and everywhere else on your skills and all that, this applies. This means that the area that you pull is really big, that can get really big. And this is one of the main reasons why Rive is so good, because not only does the third strike have comparable AoE, Its pull has comparable AoE as well. So not only are you getting a decent amount of AoE from, of course, the third strike, you're also pulling enemies in, which is giving you even more AoE, right? You want to pull the enemies in, and enemies have really weird AI when they get pulled in. They kind of like stunned for a second while they recalculate what they should be doing. And all of that combined makes challenge a very strong node and one of the most underrated nodes in the entire Rive tree, but it is insanely strong, especially against fights like T4 Jirla. Rive is one of the only melee builds, including any Primalist melee build utilizing Warcry pull. It's one of the only melee skills that actually feel good to play in T4 Jirla because you can pull Jirla out of the dot pools and stuff like that with this pull, which makes it so you can bring her into melee area and always constantly be doing damage to her instead of her sitting in a corner doing nothing while you just sit there and die, right? So challenge is really, really strong, and I would heavily suggest looking into it if you're playing a Rive build. Like, I would go out of my way to sacrifice significant portions of damage just to be able to have challenge in my build. Now here we have some more third strike stuff, more third strike damage, which is great because there's a whole archetype around third strike, which we'll get in a moment. 1 point here gives us 15% coal. 15% coal is really good for, of course, utility, if you're using Rive for utility. Then we have the detonate on kill. Sadly, this isn't really supported much. If it was 100% chance on kill to detonate, you could actually utilize it with like ailments and stuff like that. But since it's only 30% chance, it's not really worth it. If it was 100% chance, this would actually be a cool node. Then 2 points here, Rive's third strike, leeches damage Delta's health. This is including, I believe, dots as well. So that's really good. It's like a good 1 pointer if you end up around here, but not many people take this node because of a later node, which we'll talk about in a second. Then here, Outburst, which is a bunch of third strike area, right? Which is great. Then we have Laceration. Now, third strikes lacerates on hit. It's like a dot, a melee damage over time dot, where they take it over 3 seconds and base damage of 100% of your added melee damage. Now, laceration is really bad, I'll be honest. It's supposed to be like a melee dot that you apply to a target, and it kind of just falls flat due to its added melee damage amount. You can do a lot of fun stuff with it, but it's not like what I would call very good as of the moment. Maybe it can see some changes, or maybe make it so that you can stack it multiple times, or something like that that would make it a lot more viable. But as it currently stands, laceration is kind of bad. Now, we talked about the old part of Rive's tree. Now let's talk about the old part that's really good. What we're talking about is 4 points to the concentration, which gives you a bunch of base critical strike chance, which doesn't really matter too much because we're going to grab the next point here, focus strike, which makes it so that the first and second strike never crits, but it makes it so the third strike always crits. This amount of critical strike support is insanely strong, and is one of the main ways of building around Rive is third strike crit hit, where you don't invest in the first and second strike, but you invest into the third strike all the way with all of the third strike nodes here, like third strike area, third strike damage, stuff like that, right? All of that combined means that you can focus only on Rive, and it can actually make Rive hit like an absolute truck, because instead of investing all of these points into critical strike chance, like on your tree, on everything else, you can focus it on just raw damage. And that's why this is really strong. Now, of course, it takes a lot of points, so this is only good when you start getting plus levels in Rive and stuff like that. And it's also really good while leveling, because auto crit is always good while leveling, because you're gaining access to something that you normally wouldn't have access to early on. And that's pretty much it for this side. You can also get like some critical strike chance global. Not many people use this right now because not many people use Rive as a buff skill currently. Now, let's talk about the new stuff, right? So we have this node, of course, which was the old node, just gives you more generic damage. This will apply to all attacks with Rive, so it also applies with damage over time. So if you're playing like a dot Rive build, you can actually utilize this to get more damage for all of your attacks and not just your third strike. Then 4 points here, bound weapon. Bound weapon chance, it just allows you to create forged weapons. You can technically use Rive for forged weapons, but not many people do this because there are superior options to this. This is simply just a travel node so we can get access to Faux Cleaver. Faux Cleaver, this is one of the premier nodes inside Rive currently. It's one of the main reasons to be utilizing a two-handed weapon. Two-handed weapon, it means so that added flat and percent damage on the prefix of your weapon are essentially doubled. If you have 40 flat damage, right? If you have 40 flat damage, it means that you have 80 flat damage now on the prefix. If you have 100% increased damage, that means you have 200%. And the same thing with ailment chance. If you have 100% ailment chance, now you have 200% ailment chance. And it works for everything that's flat or percent damage, which is great. Like absolutely wonderful. Faux Cleaver, actually carrying two-hander builds. There's actually a certain weapon that is being utilized with Faux Cleaver. There's two kind of weapons utilized with Faux Cleaver, right? No, three actually, three that you care about. The first one that you care about is Leviathan Carver. So this melee physical damage percentage and this melee physical percent are both doubled by, of course, Faux Cleavers. So you can get a very hefty sword out of this, right? And if you get one with LP, you can slam even more on it if you want to. Now, there's also the two-handed axe here. There is Apathy's Maw. This melee flat void is doubled, and this increased melee damage is also doubled, which means you can get a lot of flat, which makes Apathy's Maw third strike hit an actual option, especially since you have the base critical strike chance support inside Rive, which means you don't have to care about base crit on Apathies. You can go for like even more melee flat damage. Now, of course, when you're playing this kind of build with Rive, you want to definitely avoid critical strike multiplier on your gear, as critical strike multiplier or base crit does not actually get doubled. So if you're going to be adding that kind of stat to your gear, make sure that like it's important, right? Or you can't get it anywhere else. Now, for the last weapon that people usually use for this Rive, it's a new one. It's going to be, where is it here? Jasper's Searing Pride. The reason why is because specifically this 75 melee damage is doubled. This is a lot of extra melee damage. It's like an insane amount of melee damage for a staff, right? And of course, you also get, when you use a melee attack and hit at least one enemy, you get Stack of Searing Blades, which gives you a bunch of flat. Now, I don't believe this is doubled. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember specifically, but like I said, it's really good because you get all this flat, you get the block chance, and Jasper's is just a decent weapon, right? Especially with LP, which has a very low LP, right? 60, so you can get like melee flat on it very easily. But yeah, that's pretty much all the weapons that are really good with Faux Cleaver. There are a lot of other options, right? But this is like the main ones I can think of right now. Now, of course, we're going to get some Ignite chance here. We're going to get some more hit damage versus ignited enemies. Then we're going to get more critical strike chance versus ignited enemies. Not many people use this node, but people definitely use this node for the more damage against ignited enemies, as that's a lot of extra more damage. Then, of course, we have Flame Drinker's Blade. This is a build around node for the entirety of Rive. If you are playing a physical Rive build, you're utilizing Flame Drinker's Blade because it has a lot of synergy with the rest of the tree, and it makes it so that you can stack Ignite chance to, of course, get physical penetration. So you play like a physical Rive crit setup, then you get as much Ignite chance as possible to apply as many Ignites to, of course, consume them, and then turn them into, of course, physical penetration stacks, right? This is really good. This essentially makes it so as you scale attack speed, you get more and more physical penetration for your damage, which makes Fizz Pen Rive hit like an absolute truck. It also has some synergy. It has some synergy with, of course, Faux Cleaver. If you get Ignite chance doubled on your suffix of your weapon, right? If you get a weapon, right? Let's say you get a decent weapon, like a decent two-handed weapon. And let's say you get like Ignite chance on hit, right? You get tier 7, you can get Faux Cleaver, which is 400% essentially Ignite chance per second, like rounded up, right? You look at this, because of this node doubling it, right? This means that you get 4 stacks of that Fizz Pen. So each time you apply a hit, you get 12% Fizz Pen, which is ridiculous, right? But it does not stop there. There's even more synergy. So you can also grab a pair of gloves called, where are they? Malin's Hubers. Malin's Hubers turns 100% of your bleed chance into Ignite chance. This means that you can not only run a weapon, right? You can run a weapon with bleed chance percentage, right? Which gets turned into Ignite chance, and it also gets doubled from it being a affix that doubles with Faux Cleaver. You also get to run Ignite chance as well, which also gets doubled from Faux Cleaver. And then the bleed gets turned to Ignite, so you actually get 200, 400% ignite chance just with 2 tier 5 modifiers. And this is assuming you're not getting like a tier 7, stuff like that. So all of that combined means that you can make a lot of ignites. You can also apply ignites in other ways. So like for instance, other popular way is you can utilize Abyssal Echoes, right? You can use Abyssal Echoes with Screaming Rifts and then apply ignites on hit and stuff like that. With this node, you can do that, right? And also has some other synergy, like you can get the attack speed with the buff and more damage versus blind. So it's a lot of synergy with that setup, right? Which is great. And all in all, this is a really strong node, and its synergy with Malin's Hubris essentially makes it like Pog tier. Like it's really, really, really good, right? Now let's talk about the rest of Rive here. So you have this node here, Weapon Specialist. You can get a bunch of flat physical for dexterity with a sword. You get a lot of flat void with vitality with an axe. This is really strong on like any void knight because you can stack a lot of vitality, like 100 vitality to get 100 flat void, which is not a paltry amount, right? And there's the attunement with the mace. I haven't really seen anyone use that one specifically yet. Then, of course, we have Temporal Warrior. What this does is it makes it so it doubles the echo chance that you have inherent as a Void Knight, which makes Rive inherently a very good Void Knight skill. Now, you can use it on Paladin and Forge Guard, but it's mainly, in my opinion, a Void Knight skill now, thanks to this. Now, remember, this does not convert the damage to Void. So you have to actually get flat void on your gear instead of relying upon added flat void, which is really good because you can run like weapon specialist, apathy's maw, right? So like you're not completely dead in the water to play void Rive. Like it's a little balanced in that regard, right? Now, of course, like I said, it doubles the echo chance. You get to 80% chance to echo on hit, meaning that essentially all of your attacks are doubled. You can also take this, of course, and apply it with Flamebreaker's Blade. So this node not only doubles your damage with your Rive, right, by doubling your hits, it also doubles your physical penetration with your Flamebreaker's Blade because you're hitting more, right, which is applying more ignites, which is also doubled with Faux Cleaver, right? So all of these combined means if you play a Fizz Crit Rive Void Knight and you combine Flame Drinkers with Malins on a two-handed weapon, you can get a lot of ignite chance and do a lot of damage, right? And then there's 5 points here where you get more damage generic for Rive, and then it's tripled for Echoes, which is like 80% of the time. So you get a very large amount of more percent damage. And if you go this route, you can also get percent damage with Void, with echoed attacks as well. And that's a whole archetype in and of itself. So pretty much Rive, all in all, has a lot of good nodes, a lot of good synergy, really good skill, bread and butter, one of the best melee skills in Last Epoch by far. It is by far one of the better melee skills in Last Epoch. And if you like playing melee, this is the build for you. And that's pretty much it for me. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go do something else. Bye.